Hello, Susan. Welcome to the Perfect Child podcast.
Thanks, Belinda. Good to be here.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to have you. And I'm going to start with your bio.
Okay.
Susan McNamara, MACHHC, moved out to the woods of Western Massachusetts with her husband and two children more than 20 years ago, with the aim of living closer to the land while discovering what it is that human beings actually need to thrive. Susan is a woman who cares deeply about how we are living and treating each other and the planet. For more than 30 years, she has been focused on living according to what matters most to her. Her most recent book, Remembering What Matters Most, A Call to Courage for Parents Ready to Take a Stand for Childhood in the Age of Technology, is now available. She is also the author of a book titled Trusting Your Body. Additionally, she writes three Substacks for out of the box thinkers on life, living, health, healing, and the impact the technologies are having on our humanity. You can find out more at rememberingwhatmattersmost.com. Susan is a certified holistic health counselor, professional level Kripalu yoga teacher, shamanic practitioner, and journey dance guide. She is trained in mindfulness based stress reduction, holds a master's in counseling psychology, and is trained and educated at the doctoral level in clinical psychology. She continues to learn and train in all things related to who we are, what we need most, and why we are here. Susan, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, that seemed like quite a mouthful, Belinda. I think that about covers it.
You have such a breadth of knowledge. So I really loved both of your books because I like your voice in them. So there are public personalities that tend to be passive in their messaging because they don't want to offend people or just seem too assertive or aggressive. Not that I'm saying that your voice is aggressive, but I feel like your voice is firm for sure and loving because you can tell that it comes from a place of deep love and you can feel from your voice that this is something that you feel deeply about and you feel the urgency of it, which is why you're not mincing words. So, I want to talk about your book, Trusting Your Body. You are very clear in this book that one of the most important things that we can do as humans living this physical experience is to connect with our bodies. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a big question. And I just want to say, I really appreciate what you just said about the not mincing words part. That is something that has literally been decades in the making. And a big part of it is I do feel the urgency. And I believe that there is a way where we can be direct with one another without being judgmental. Like, I think we've gone too far to the other side where we feel like if you say a clear thing to somebody, it means that you're shaming them or judging them. And that's not actually what it means at all. I think that one of the most loving things that we can do is to be honest and clear with one another and to not jump into the narratives that allow people to kind of go into these unreal places or these places that are actually like really harmful. And, to segue into what you're saying about the book, Trusting Your Body, that's really how I found my voice. That's how I found my way into truly, yeah, this way of directness was going into learning how to trust my body because I didn't trust my body. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't, caring for my body. Anything that I thought that I was doing that might have been caring for my body was the equivalent of, I'm just going to kind of beat up on you and try and get you to fit into some kind of a mold, right? So maybe it was, a diet that I might have been trying back in my 20s, or, oh, I felt like I ate the wrong thing yesterday. So today I'm going to go out for a run and try and kind of, manage and control my body into something. And so it's literally been since 20s, like my mid 20s, where I recognized that I was really beating up on my body in terms of everything from, I was smoking cigarettes, I was drinking a ton, but like back then we would have called it partying. But like when I look back right now, I'm thinking, I don't think there was like a party vibe to that. It was very compulsive in a certain kind of a way. And it was very much like I realize now I was really medicating a lot of the feelings that I was having, the childhood that I grew up in, a world that I was in that didn't actually make sense to me or see me for who I was and what it was that I was trying to do. And so I literally, at the age of 25, just got really fed up with the diets and jumping on a scale. And if I was a good weight, I was a good person. If I was 1 pound over, I was a bad person. And I just really got sick of that whole, way of being with myself. And so I just did two things. I threw the scale away and I haven't owned one since. And which has been, I'm telling you, it's the simple things that are so empowering. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're not going to tell me who I am or what my worth is. Like every day I step on this thing and it's telling me, am I good? Am I bad? Like all of that, right? And then I found a spinach salad. It sounds so crazy. I just started eating a spinach salad and once in a while. And then that just started to take me from place to place. And I've certainly done a lot of trainings and read a lot of books and listened to a lot of people, but ultimately it's been a path of my own making, which at this point I know is the only way that we can do that. Is that yes, you get help along the way. Yes, you get guidance from various people, but ultimately you have to walk this path yourself. And that's why I believe that learning about our bodies, forming a relationship with them is one of the single most important things that we'll ever do because it goes far beyond your health and even healing situations. And it speaks to, do you feel like you have a right to exist? Do you feel like you have a right to stand in your power? Do you feel like you have a right to be sovereign over your own body? All of these things that are not explored when we're just turning to the Fitbits or the apps or the influencers. And I really see that right now. People are getting led all over the place based on what they're seeing coming across the screen. And that's not the same thing as being in relationship to your body. It's not the same thing as being in your body. And that's something that I talk a lot about being in your body. And I think a lot of times that's confusing for people because they'll say to me, what do you mean? Like, where else would I be but in my body, right?
Right.
But if you've ever
Right.
actually paid attention to your mind, if you've ever actually paid attention to the behaviors and the choices that you're making, you'll see that your mind will be in one place, right? It will be looking at the body as an image in a mirror. It will be looking at the body as a number on a scale or on a blood pressure reading. It will be looking at the body like how other people see it and value it. That is not the same thing, though, as actually being in your body and feeling what it is that you're deciding. Because I always come back to like, if we were actually in our bodies, we wouldn't be able to drink the way that we're drinking, drug the way that we're drugging, eating the things that we're doing, sitting hour after hour in front of a
What,
screen.
what do you mean by that?
So, what I mean by that is, so if I just take my example, for instance, like back in my quote party days, if I had ever been in my body, by the time I was whatever on the 10th cigarette or the the eighth drink or whatever it was that I was smoking, I would see that I didn't feel good. Or the next day, when you're hungover, if you were actually
Hmm.
in your body and feeling that, you'd think, why would I do this to myself? Right? Or if you were sitting in front of a screen hour after hour and your back is starting to hurt and your neck is starting to hurt because you've been there for so long or you haven't drank anything in hours and hours, if you were in your body, you would never be able to tolerate sitting for that length of time. You would never be able to tolerate putting so much alcohol into your body, or you would never be able to tolerate, for instance, working in certain environments or having certain friendships. Because if you were in your body and you felt the way that it felt to be around this person or in this setting, like that you maybe felt ill at ease, maybe you felt like you couldn't really speak your mind, maybe you've got a knot in your stomach, you're not sleeping well, right? If you're paying attention to all the signs and signals of the body, it's like following breadcrumbs, right? It takes you back to yourself, and it's like, oh, this is all the messaging from my body that's saying, I don't like it here. I don't like what you're putting in me. I don't like who you're hanging out with. Does that make sense?
This makes sense. And of course, I go back to the compulsory school system where so many kids are fidgeting, and that's their body telling them, you need to get up and move. And we're literally telling them, you cannot. And when you get up and move, you're wrong and you're bad.
A hundred
So we're
percent.
sort of creating this out of body experience from the get-go.
Yeah, it's the only way. Like, I just have full body chills right now because it's literally when you're talking about being a child, it's the only way you can survive in that environment. You've got to start to shut it all down because all of your needs are an inconvenience. It's a disruption to the classroom. And I live that going to Catholic schools. They did not want you going to the bathroom during the day. They wanted you to wait until lunchtime or recess, but like, you can't often wait that long. Or
Well, you're not supposed to.
exactly. Or they didn't want you eating till a certain time. Or I'll give you like a big one. My natural inclination when I was in whatever the grades are, probably like kindergarten or first grade, I was picking up pens and crayons and whatever with my left hand. But because I went to a Catholic school, they would not, and this was, back in the 70s, they would not let me write with the left hand. And so I got forced into writing with my right hand. Now, what's been great is anything that I learned as a grown up, like if I was going to throw a frisbee or if I was going to throw a football, I would go to my left hand. So I did ultimately compensate for that. But
Yeah,
yes, like our in the culture that we're living in, productivity oriented, kind of one size fits all, very like monoculture-ish. Your needs are an inconvenience, right? Your
right.
body is an inconvenience. You're being expected as a child. And even as grown-ups now, I know plenty of grown-ups who spend all day on Zoom and they are frustrated and angry and depleted at the end of the day because they've had to force themselves to do a very unnatural thing in terms of the body, right? The mind will say to you, oh no, Susan, you need to sit here because you have all of these meetings. What the mind says, though, the intellect, is not the same thing as the experience of the body.
Right. And how many times have we heard people say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't eat all day. I completely forgot." We're totally disrespecting our body. And going back to the whole school thing, we we create a culture of it's okay to be hungover. It's the cool thing to do. And that starts in probably high school because they're experimenting. And instead of talking about like, how does that actually make your body feel? Because we don't talk about these things in school, right? They show you movies like Red Asphalt where they tell you all these dangerous things that can happen if you do these drugs, but they're not actually telling you the root of everything, which is listen, when you go do these things, what are you feeling in your body? And what does that tell? Are you disrespecting your body? Do you feel like this is a good thing for your body? Or do you feel like it's disrespecting your body? Right. And then if you have that conversation in high school, then they'll be more aware of their body and being in their body so that when they go to college, many people will choose not to get into a sorority or a fraternity because they're disrespecting their bodies in a very big way. But yet our culture supports this craziness.
Yeah, it's sadly a very pathetic kind of initiation where it's kind of
It's
like,
terrible.
oh, this is just what happens. This is just the way that it goes. Whereas if I was ever like queen of the world, I would absolutely be teaching kids mindfulness, how to be present in their bodies. And when I used to teach at the college level, my kind of pat response around all of this was, this is beyond right or wrong, good or bad. This is beyond, especially if you look at all the foods right now and the food wars around, like, don't eat this, eat that, only eat this. That is not the domain of the body. That is the domain of the intellect or of the mind that has been like kind of conditioned into something. But if you're actually present and you're putting something in your mouth, you're noticing the way that it tastes, you're paying attention to the way that it feels in your body. That's very different. That's also why diets don't work, because you've got this like outside thing coming in to impose something, as opposed to an inside out kind of an experience where you are in your body, you're noticing what feels good. Even with kids, I think about this all the time in terms of drinking and becoming sexually active, right? If you were actually in your body, you would know whether or not it feels good to be next to the person that you're next to, whether or not it feels good about whether they're, what they're doing or what they're not doing, right? It
Mhm.
wouldn't be like, I've talked to so many
You
who
froze.
were
Oh,
not in their bodies. You know, these kids were not in their, these women were not in their bodies. You know what they were doing, which is feels really sad to me right now. And I think it's happening a lot. But like some of these college women were telling me that they're not actually in their bodies when they're having sex, like seeing what the sensations are. They're wondering how they look
oh my
while they're having
gosh.
sex, right? So
Hmm.
that's a really good example of, I'm either feeling the sensations that are working for me or not. That's being in my body, versus how do I look right now being intimate with another person, right? Yeah. I mean, that pretty much says it all right there.
Right. We're such a culture of wondering other people's perceptions of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted one thing that popped into my head when you were talking about throwing away the weight scale. I haven't owned a scale in years, but also now it's like it's not the weight scale, it's the Fitbit or your phone or whatever you're tracking. Everything that you're tracking, you're literally outsourcing, like relying on a computer to tell you how many steps you've taken in a day.
Yeah.
How did it feel to you? How much exercise, how much walking have you done? How does that feel to you? Instead of relying on this machine that's counting your steps. How is it even counting your steps? How does it know?
Right. And for me, you know, it feels very punitive potentially. It feels very antiseptic to me, very like forced, managed, and controlled to me. And that's not the experience of being in the body. You know, when you've got one of those Fitbits or you're wearing the thing at night to tell you how many hours you slept and how much
Oh,
time you were in REM and all of that. And I had somebody recently say that, oh, I got a great night's sleep. And it's like, well, how did you know that? Well, it's because of whatever the, I can't remember the name of the device, whatever the device was that they were using. And for me, it is a really dangerous thing to
yeah.
separate people from their bodies, because when you do that, you can convince them of the wrong things. On the one hand, if we're talking about like you know, more sort of Machiavellian intents, and at the same time, you're robbing people of their power because
Oh gosh. They're
your
giving it away.
well, a hundred
We're
percent,
giving it away when we do that
yes,
because it's okay. Everything that exists that is a practice, a tool, whatever, capitalism exists. If you're going to create something, the onus is on me not to participate.
yes.
Create all you want, try
Yeah.
and sell all you want, but the power is within us to say no.
Yes, and I agree with you up to a point, except now we have to add in the way that the level of influence right now that is being brought to bear on people, it's well beyond sort of like old school marketing techniques. You know, people are very, industries, especially the tech industry, is very hip to behavioral psychology, is very hip to like our deepest needs for belonging and safety and acknowledgement, and all of those buttons are getting pushed in us. And so I'm a firm believer in personal responsibility, and I'm also aware that this is not an even playing field that we're working on right now when it comes to people telling us, because there's so many fear tactics, Belinda, around like, if you don't have this information, if you don't do this test, you're going to have some health scare. So people are frightened to death of their own bodies, of what is going to happen to them. And that's why people outsource them, because they don't believe that they have the knowledge and the power. And again, I think it's a very dangerous practice to outsource your power to somebody else. Like, do you use people as consultants and for guidance? 100%. But you are the only one who's living in your body, who knows what it takes to be in your body. And for me, like I said in the beginning, this goes well beyond health and healing. And this is speaking directly to how empowered do we feel in the world? How much of a right do we feel like we have to exist in a way that makes sense to us?
Mm-hmm.
That's why for me, the body is really a portal into like some of the biggest questions of what it means to be alive and how it is to live here. And I really know that in the time that we're living in, where with AI, things are getting less and less real, and you don't know what's true, you don't know what's faked. I'll give you the answer of how you figure that out. You get in your body. You figure out how to get in your body, because your body is the one that will tell you. There'll be some sense, there'll be some experience, some, like for me, it's almost like I feel like someone's thrown a little bit of sand into the gears, right? When I'm in front of something that's off, like that's my personal experience. I'll be like, ooh, I can't name what this is right now, but something feels off to me right now. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
really, really important thing, because either you're going to get duped and pulled into all the wrong stuff, or you're going to wind up becoming really cynical, and you're going to wind up becoming somebody who doesn't trust the world, and like that's no good either. So yeah, my
Yeah.
thing is always is like, home base is the body for everything, because it's in the present moment, right? The
Mm-hmm.
mind can be tricked and fooled. The mind lives in the past, it lives in the future. The body though lives in the present moment, and that's the only place where you can really see what is before you and make the choice that you most need to be making.
Okay, so I mean, this is a very important topic. So, how did you raise your children to be embodied?
Mm. So it started for me when they were infants. So I had no, like, I gotta just say, like, I had no experience in this. This was not how I was raised. Before I had kids, I was in a doctoral program for clinical psychology. I mean, it was the most disembodied experience I have ever had in my life. The body was nowhere to be found. And it started when I got pregnant with my first. And so I'm doing an internship for this doctoral program. And in the first trimester, I am slammed with exhaustion at a certain point in like the early afternoon. Like I would almost get to be the place where I felt like I could have a temper tantrum if I didn't lay down. And so I literally would lock the door to my office. I would lay down on the floor, put my coat over me, and like just sleep or rest for a little bit. And it was like there was no denying this. And that was my first really, really fully embodied experience of the body wants what the body wants, because getting pregnant, everything changed. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
muscle through the way that I used to muscle through. I couldn't sort of bullshit my body the way that I used to. Like I had to really be in it. And so that was the start of it, that I thought, wow, there are some like non-negotiable needs here. As much as the mind will try to negotiate away why you don't go to the bathroom at work or why you didn't get to the water, the body has the needs that are just non-negotiable. And so when I had babies,
Mm-hmm.
I was just honestly like, I didn't know, but I was practicing mindfulness, something I have been training in, and I just didn't have any preconceptions. I just would like look at them and try and listen to them and watch them. And especially if you've ever like nursed babies, right? It's not like, oh, we're on this schedule with the bottle feeding or something. Like, especially in the beginning, they nurse
Hmm.
when they need to nurse. And like, that's not necessarily the most convenient thing to a grown up, right? And so it was like, all of that, or they sleep when they need to sleep. And so I
Yeah.
just started this very direct kind of exploration around watching them. And I was aware of that when I started to bring like solid foods into it. And I was aware of that when they would start to move, or I was aware of that when people in the beginning were trying to give me all of these presents. And I, at the time, I thought, honestly, if I had to find a place to put this baby down, I could just open up a drawer and put the baby in the drawer. Like, like it doesn't, this is us and our minds believing, and this is what we've been sold. You need
Hmm.
all this gear. This is the stuff that makes you a good parent. And so I started to really get hip to that, to what we were being sold. Because in real time, I was watching the kids and I'm thinking, like, they're not even aware of this. Like,
Yeah.
they need me
Yeah.
and they need to be fed and they need to be safe and changed and held close. And like that's just about it. So I really did cut my teeth on the kids like as they were coming through.
So, did your kids go to conventional school?
They went to a conventional school not for their early years. We were living in another place and then we moved when they were both in grade school. They went to a conventional place and, I had very mixed feelings about that
Hmm.
because while the people there, they were good-hearted people in so many ways, but the system was so just fundamentally flawed and broken. And I felt like I was having to represent at every single turn, especially because we weren't, the kids didn't have phones and there was a desktop computer, but there weren't iPads. We didn't even have TV. So, and we were eating all organic and I wasn't using conventional medicine. So I just felt like I was just constantly explaining myself or having to run interference. I mean, I cried a lot. I'd get out in the parking lot after talking to some teacher or something. But then when they hit middle school through high school, they went to a performing arts charter school. And that was really like a really powerful experience for both of them that still continues to kind of move through their lives. So there was a lot more humanity, let's say. And I don't want to say that their grade school didn't have humanity because there were some very good people there, but they were very bound by teaching to the test, which was one of my huge pet peeves, or the rubrics, or, the, when the, oh gosh, oh, the MCAS, was that the name of it? I can't remember. There was some state thing, a whole week of like all of this like stupid testing. And it used to just enrage me because during that week, we'd be getting all these notices like, this is a really good week to make sure that your kids get a good night's sleep and that send them to school with a good meal. And I just felt so angry because I thought like, why are
Why
you
isn't that
just,
every day?
yes,
Why are we
yes,
not allowing the children to sleep really well every day
yes,
and eat nutritious foods? Why doesn't the
yes.
school offer nutritious foods?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So basically, when they went to the charter school, then they had even just the thought of a performing arts charter school seems like there would be a lot more freedom. Like
There was
you
a
could get
ton.
up and go to the bathroom when you needed to. And
Hmm.
because I don't know why. Why is that? Why is it that a performing arts charter school can do that and other schools can't
I have no
or
idea, but
won't?
or won't. I really do. I feel for the teachers in the conventional system because their hands are so tied, and I think a lot of times too, they just, especially the new teachers coming in, they don't even know that there's another way. Some of the older teachers, like the teachers in their 50s and 60s, they understood that there was a time before where they would have the kids out multiple times for recess in a day, where there was gym multiple times a week, where there was music, where there was library, where there was all of these other things happening. And all of that has just gotten systematically squeezed out for all of this time on learning. And I think that the big missing piece here is like for kids, everything is learning. It's all learning.
Yeah, everything is learning. And I mean, I don't really talk much about the conventional school system because I don't know. I only know what I hear because my child's not in a conventional school, but I hear that they don't do a lot of exercise and they don't do a lot of art. And it's a really interesting because as a person who's so focused on the body and being in the body, what would you say? First of all, we know that in all conventional schools, the people who are actually going to be able to make a difference are the parents. So the parents have to get in there to make change because the teachers have their hands tied. So as parents, you need to go and state your cause. But if you what would you say to parents who have to put their kids in a conventional school that has not that is not aware of how important the body is and hasn't been willing to maybe make some shifts? What would you say to a parent? Like, what could you do at home for these children, or what could you tell your child? Like, what would you do?
I mean, I think, and it would be my answer for pretty much anything that you would ever ask me in this regard, is that as a parent, it starts with you, right? That we cannot do for our kids what we cannot do for ourselves. And that holds true for whether it's the technologies, a good night's sleep, the food that we're eating, moving our bodies. And so I would say it all begins with us as parents. And I know you know this, that you have to be willing to look more deeply at yourself, to do some soul searching, to be wondering what's working in your life around your body and what's not working, and to start to make that important because I feel like we have bypassed that, especially the more that the technologies roll out. We just keep bypassing the body more and more without recognizing how much harm that we're bringing to ourselves, and especially with the kids because we know that whatever ways of being or habits that kids have when they're young are very likely to be the ones that they have at different ages and stages of their lives. And so,
Mhm.
what I would say to parents is, you know, to look to your own life, to what's working and what's not working. Like, are you not able to get to bed on time? Are you not listening to your body's call for movement? And then to get into it yourself, because then you're in a position to be able to model something for the kids, right? Which is so important because even if, let's just say, even if you can't do anything with the school system, if you're providing a really rich environment at home where the kids' needs are being cared for, and it's as simple as this, it's as simple as I remember when my kids would get home from school, right, to not be on the computer, not be on your phone, be there to welcome them back into the house. And one of the first things that we would do with my two when they would get off the bus is we would wind up in the kitchen and they would get food because a lot of times in school, right, they're getting
Yeah.
sent lunches or whatever, but because they've got like 6 minutes to eat and they want to be hanging out with their friends and they don't want to be spending it on eating, what happens? They don't eat. So they would get home. And that was the basis because, you know, my son was one who I really learned from at that. Like there was a certain age, like somewhere in grade school, where he would just come home and be like depleted or glum or just in a way that wasn't really him. And in the beginning, I would be trying to like problem solve with him, like what was happening, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I was like, "Oh, he's just hungry. He's just
Hungry.
really hungry." And as soon as he would get like a good, you know, kind of balanced, rooted snack in him, his whole demeanor, his whole mood would change. And so that again is the power of the body, right? Is that we can be running around trying to put out all these fires with our kids, whether it's their physical health or their mental health. But if you haven't given the body its most basic needs, you actually don't know what you're looking at, right? And so that
Mhm.
my example is a good one. Like I thought I was looking at someone who was having some kind of an emotional struggle. No,
Right.
He was just hungry. That's
Yeah.
it. And so to do that, to start to model to your kids, like get off the screens and, be with each other at the end of the day and get everybody into bed at a decent time and sit down together and eat a meal and cook a meal together and all of those things. Go outside together, plant something, go for a walk around the block. Like it doesn't have to be big. It really
Right.
doesn't. But like we keep thinking that like we've got more important things to do, right? Like answering that text or, scrolling through your feed or answering that email. Like these are the important things. It's not true. We're mammals. And if you don't satisfy that mammalian connection and need, nothing else is going to work well in your life.
I really love this example that you stated because your child it's such a tendency for us to look at the environment and figure out if there's something wrong, and actually it's internal. And not to mention, when you fuel your child's body and you're there present, another thing that your child might be seeking after coming back from conventional school is to be seen, and just your presence fills their cup
Yeah.
to be 100% in front of the caregiver, the parent, and eating good food, enjoying each other's company, just being validated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, right? Because that's how our children figure out how to take care of their bodies, is how well we were able to take care of their bodies. Like, did we know what their basic needs were? And to that end, the other piece that I would add in, whatever your use or your philosophy is around the technologies, is to make sure that when they get home from school, like you're just taking care of the basics of the body. So water, going to the bathroom, food. But I would also add into that some space and some time where nothing is required of them and they're not going to a screen, right? Because
Yes.
that's when they can hear themselves. If they're always busy, they're always focused on a screen, they're always, something is always being demanded of them, they will not have that experience of just being in their body and kind of being like how does this feel to me right now? It's so important. And I circle back. That's really, I know that would change everything in terms of drugging and drinking and sex and all kinds of like risky and whatnot behaviors, screen or off screen. If kids had some space to actually feel into their bodies, to be with themselves without anything distracting them, you're going to raise different kinds of kids when it comes to the body.
Yes. And this is where, um, like what is the word I'm looking for? The, oh, man, my vocabulary. The fact that you state having values is so important because when the children are, your children are in compulsory school and they're on screens all day, they're also not allowing their bodies to communicate in a way that's supportive of their growth. It's important as parents to come home and set a rule that is, we will not be on technology. When you come home, we will not be on technology. Like, I don't care what you do, you can do other things, but I feel like it's easier to set that boundary because your kids have been on the computer all day at school.
Yes.
It's important to say you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. It's
And in
draining
fact,
you.
we're
It's
all going to
exhausting.
put our computers away. Like you said, put your computer away, be present with your child. So like, can that be something that a parent takes agency over and sets that boundary for themselves and for their kids? Because are your children worth it for you to say? Because if you are a stay-at-home mom, you probably have that ability to just say, okay, well, I'm going to put my phone away for the next 2 hours from 3 to 5 because it's important for me to model this with my kids. It's not like you have to hang out with them, They could do whatever they want, but none of you, neither of you will be on the computer.
Yes, because I think that the other thing that happens with this is, especially now because the technologies are coming into children's ages from infancy, whereas like, the generations before might have had a time period when it wasn't really in play in their lives. And if the kids don't have an opportunity to kind of feel what it feels like to be away from the screen versus I think they just get into this kind of numbed out zombie like stage where you just don't feel that great in your body, but you don't actually recognize that there's another way to feel in your
Mhm.
body. And so that's why there needs to be breaks and times when that's not going on. And to like add into that, the other thing that I would say too is how essential it is for parents to let their children be outside playing without constant monitoring and without the constant like overlay of like that's not safe, that's not safe, that's not safe. Like everything is not safe these days, and that
Mhm.
is how our children actually grow into their bodies, is the risk taking, the climbing the tree, the climbing over the fence, the standing on top of the rock, the getting your feet wet in a mud puddle. Like all of that is so important for their experience of being in a body, because that's one of the things too that I'm very saddened by and concerned about right now is kids are afraid of a lot of things. They're afraid of their bodies. They're afraid of the natural world. This is going to get you, that's going to get you. And I don't think people realize the devastating imprint that you're placing on a child in terms of what it feels like to be alive and to be
Mhm.
free in your body. Because if you don't have that experience of being free in your body as a child, it's super hard to get it as a grown up. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't give our children enough outdoor time,
No.
especially if they're in a program from early on. Like we're so lucky that we have so many people who have started outdoor programs for preschoolers and up to kindergarten, and there's also outdoor school and home education and all of that. But if you think about it, being out in the sun is healing.
Yeah.
And being out in the sun, getting grounded, being in the elements is so important for our body's development, healthy development. And yet we give that up
Yeah.
and we allow our children just to be indoors for a good portion of their lives and we wonder why they're not doing so well.
Yeah, it's weird because like the sense that I got, when my kids were younger was we started to, and I don't really know how this came to pass, but we started to believe that they were safer inside. And so while maybe you're not getting a skinned knee, maybe you're not getting stitches or a broken bone, um, you're also trading it for all of the ways that the screen world is invading their innocence and their preciousness and their sense of feeling at ease in the world. Like, I think
Yeah.
because it felt like it was a physical um, avoidance of danger, I don't think parents saw what they were trading in for.
Right. Now let's talk a little bit about the absolute necessity of getting clear and standing for something.
Yeah. Well, I think it underpins everything that you and I have been talking about, right? Because there's no way that you can bring this into your children's life if you don't believe in it, if you're not willing to stand for it, because the world right now will take you out of your game immediately. It will pull you into some other game that you don't really want to be a part of. But if you don't know what you stand for, if you don't have your values clear inside of you, there's so many things being offered right now that have nothing to do with what children need, have nothing to do with a growing body or what a human being needs, and we're all sort of subject to this, I don't know, this confusion or being misled around that. So I would say to parents how important it is to spend some time getting really clear about what's important to you, what you think a growing body really needs, and you don't need to be an expert about this. You just watch your child, and to talk with, if you have a spouse, a partner, whoever it is that you're, kind of helping to raise the kids with, um, and to start to get clear about not just, okay, this is the thing that I would say if somebody says to me, like, what do you value? But that you really look at your life and you figure out, okay, so when am I living those values and when am I not living those values? Like, you can't, for instance, be saying to your children that it's really important that the family spends time together. And then every time that you sit down to spend time together, you're like, oh, I just got to answer this text. Oh, just one more email. Oh, that thing that we do now. Or you can't say how important it is that the body gets real food and then they watch you eat like a power bar and that's the only thing that you ate all day long. Right? So you have to
Hmm.
really be living it and walking the talk because our kids, they're brilliant at seeing the hypocrisy.
Oh,
Yeah.
1000%. My daughter is always calling us out on that,
Yes.
which is really important also. I want to add that our children are so intelligent. And if we are open to learning from them, accepting what we're hearing from them, seeing how they're acting, and being open to actually validating
Yes.
how they show up, it's really transformative. It's incredible how attuned our children are to the energies around us in the family dynamics. That's what I've seen from my own child.
Yes.
Like just the things that she says, and I'm literally like, "Oh my gosh, that is what I do. That
Yes.
is really interesting. How
Hmm.
did she know that?" She was literally like, I don't know, 9 or 10 at the time. Like we think that this is the thing in this society. And I don't know if it's like a lot of societies, but like we seem to disregard children because we just think they're kids. They don't know anything. And that is so untrue. They
Hmm.
know so much more than we do because they're attuned. They come
Hmm.
into this world attuned.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to support that. And I know that this is like so much of the work that you do. You want to support that preciousness, that attunement, that energetic read. And the only way that you can do that is through the body. You can't leave the body out because otherwise they have nothing to come home to. They have no ground to return to. So it's again about really watching them and paying attention. And I remember thinking about that, like when you say like about your kids, your child being little and what it was that she was knowing. And I remember realizing that at one point that like it was my job to protect that knowing, and the way that I could protect it was really being very grounded and very consistent about their most basic needs being met, because I think that that's the other thing that we lose track of sometimes. If your child, like let's just say for instance a 2-year old and they still need naps, and they don't, and you're not giving them a nap consistently because it doesn't fit with your schedule, and then we all know what ends up happening, right? They melt down, they break down, then you're negotiating, maybe you're giving them stuff that you wouldn't normally give them to so they'll be quiet, whether it's the phone or something sugary or whatever. Like we're not actually setting them up to be successful, right? And when they're not successful in their initial experiences of the world, they don't trust it. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like they have a place in the world. Like it's a huge statement that we make as parents to really make sure that their most basic needs are getting met. And that is the food and the movement and the sleep and the connection and all of that.
Right. Basic needs are nourishment, safety,
Yes. Yes.
connection,
Yep.
and most of all, letting your kid know that they matter.
Mm.
We don't do that enough.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing that
Wait, can I just add one thing to what you just said,
yes.
because I do think it's really important. I also believe that one of the strongest ways that you convey to your children that they matter is that they're taken care of, right? Because there's, right, nothing conveys value more than if you actually care for something. And so that goes for what we do with our children, and that goes with what we do with our own bodies, that you convey value. You don't have to say you matter. Like, it gets conveyed because you are like caring for that person or your own body.
And that's really the only way that you can help a child to understand that they matter, because they see past our words.
Yes.
So you could tell your child you love them, they're the most important thing in your life, but if you don't actually act like they are, that you don't put their needs first, you're not willing to learn from them, they get it.
Yep.
And they won't feel like they'll matter. But I want to go back to what you're talking about, that like being in the body is most important. And in this society, we have a tendency to future think. And we're constantly putting our children in the future. If
Yeah.
you don't get good grades, you're not going to get into a good college. If you don't go to a good college, you're not going to blah, 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 blah. And literally, they're never in their bodies, right? What if we were to be able to just not talk about that and not future think, but allow them to just be and trust that their innate dharma, their divine path, they come with their own divine path. And what can we do to serve them in the present and help them be in their bodies while we're learning ourselves to do the thing to model and be present? Can we just lean into that trust?
Yeah.
Because will that make better humans? Because right now, we know we're not making better humans in
No.
the current trajectory. We've seen this for years now. This is where we're at. This compulsory school and this constantly filling of time. And then with the introduction of technology and AI, filling up even more time and literally, oh, and the whole judgment and shame, right? Like that's put upon us. We're constantly in this state of judgment and shame. And
Yes.
what a shame that is. And so we've seen now we have a bunch of children and grown-ups that are completely confused.
Absolutely. Well,
So
because,
we need to make change.
yeah, I mean, because I would add on to, I agree with everything that you were saying. Like, I don't even think that we're actually raising humans anymore. I don't know what we're doing, right?
Robots.
Yeah, robots, because as mammals, you just can't circumvent those most basic needs. You can't think that like sleep is negotiable. You can't think that like real food is negotiable and expect that you're going to grow a healthy human being. And then for me, because I saw this so much in my own life personally, I couldn't get to my dharma because I was so like mucked up with all the choices that I was making that I was dulled over, and I was just dealing with like putting out all the fires of what my lifestyle had created for me. And so for me, this is another huge aspect of this when it comes to either ourselves or our kids. You have to fundamentally be giving the body what it needs. Otherwise, you can't reach high. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If we could do it with the body, you can't reach those higher places if you feel sick and dulled over and you don't have the energy that you need and your mind,
Fearful.
you're fearful. Yeah.
We don't know what the future holds, but we know that if we are healthy in our body and our mind, then we're winning.
Yes.
Then we're better able to make clear decisions, to
Yeah.
come from a place of our own truth and our own authenticity.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the Healer Within series.
Yeah. So that's something that I created for women. And I love that. I don't even like to call it a program because I really feel like it's like some kind of like rehabilitation or like bringing us back to what we already know. And so that is something that was is really born out of everything that we've just been talking about in terms of what are the body's most basic needs, and to come to this understanding of how much power and how many things become available for us when we turn towards ourselves and begin to form a more connected, loving relationship with our bodies, because it really it transcends out. And so the way that I set it up, which I absolutely love, is it's every module has like an archetype that we work with. And so it's everything from, the hermit to the healer to, and each the warrior, each one sort of, when you talk about the energies, imbuing us with the energies that we need to be a healing force in our own lives. Because if you're a healing force in your own life, you
Mhm.
are going to be a healing force in the world. It's just like what you were saying a minute ago about, like, if you're taking care of yourself, we win, right? If you recognize the power of really caring for yourself and turning towards the healing that lives within you naturally, you become a whole nother, I want to say, like, vibrational being on the
Yeah.
planet. And it's felt by everybody around you, because right now things have gotten so dumbed down and so dulled down, that that's another place for me that I think is really problematic, is we don't really realize how much power is contained within us.
Mhm.
And for me, the healer within has been that path for me anyway, is to discover that healer within me. That's not what people think, like, oh, other people are healers, but I'm not. In my world, that's not true. We all
Right.
possess that healing capacity inside of
I agree.
ourselves.
So it starts September.
It starts in September. Yep. And if people are interested in it, I haven't got the, whatever my landing page is opened at this point, because we're still kind of far out. If you
Okay.
just get on my email list, you'll see when that starts to launch, or just, you could just be in touch with me by email, and I'm happy to talk to people that way too.
Okay. And then it's how long? How long is the program?
So it's interesting, because I'm like, the reason why I kind of put it off until September is I originally had it as a 6-month program where we met once a month, and then there's just tons of like videos and meditations and PDFs. Like, I know I made it, but there's a lot of really rich support. And I've done a lot of programs, and I have to say that there's just an incredible amount of content that is really supportive and very, like, tangible and hands-on. So with all of that said, for some reason, I'm sort of playing around with the idea of making this, instead of spreading it over 6 months, of spreading it across 6 weeks, that maybe people would
Great.
feel, because I think sometimes these days, honestly, like, people feel reluctant to make a commitment for that long. And so I'm trying to do that balance between, you know, really giving this the due that it deserves,
Yeah.
but at the same time making it workable for people who maybe at this point can't really imagine themselves making a 6-month commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
That's really interesting. Maybe you just
yeah.
offer two things.
Yeah, so sort of like to be determined. It's all
Yeah.
kind of marinating right now. But yes,
Okay.
but for
Great.
sure, it's going to run again. So
Awesome. I'm excited. That sounds great because I don't know that we actually do a lot of talking about the archetypes and they all, live within us. And so
yeah.
it'd be great to learn about that and see how we can pull all of it out.
Yeah, because it's even like the conversation we were just having, like, I think of them as the body basics, right? Of all the basic needs of the body. And in that particular module, the mother is the archetype. And what I love about that, right, is like the archetype, the energy of the mother, she's all about the body. She knows everything about how to feed the body and care for the body. And it doesn't matter what kind of mothering experience that you had, we have that energy within us. And I love tapping into that, because it means, like, no matter what you got or didn't get when you were coming through, you still can find that in that energy.
Yes. Yes, that's great. It's no, it's so good to know that we really can heal ourselves.
Yes.
And we don't have to go all the way back to the past or any of that. We don't have to pull anybody else in. Talk therapy sometimes is like, oh, you need to tell your mother how you feel, and that's not very helpful. Just FYI to people. Um, we can do all our healing on our own. Okay, so in the beginning, when I read your bio, you write 3 Substacks. How often are you updating those Substacks?
So every week, so I know it's a
Okay.
little bit like unconventional, but what I wound up doing was I have one called Remembering What Matters Most, which focuses on how the technologies are impacting humanity. And so I write on that one every other week. And then in the off week, I write something called Medicine for the People. And that's all about everything on like health and healing and life and living. And then once a month, I do something called The Healer Within, which is a video. And so that
Okay.
one, if people are interested in kind of getting into the direct experience, once a month I will, talk about some topic. And then the last, 10 or 15 minutes is always some kind of a meditation or a movement thing because when it comes to our bodies, you can't just talk about this. You can't just read this. You have to actually experience it. And so that's what I love about that one is very experiential.
Okay, great. And so everybody can find your Substacks by going to Remembering What Matters Most, your website.
Yep.
And then they'll be able to access, this Substack.
Yep, if you go under
Okay.
the resources page, like all three are listed there. And also too, if you get in somehow on Substack with one of them, I always put on my footers the other ones that I do so you could kind of snake your way in that way too.
Perfect. Great. They sound amazing. So useful. Thank you so much.
You're
Is
welcome.
there anything you want to add before we end our time together?
Um, I think that I would just add, just based on something that you said a little bit earlier around like winning, like we could win, and I really do feel like we are in very troubled times right now, times where we've never been more disconnected from our bodies, other people, the natural world. I really do see this as an opportunity for us to see what it is that we have forgotten and to make that really conscious choice to go back into a place of remembering. Because sometimes you do have to forget in order to really come to know the value of something. And so that's the thing that I would say, if people are feeling, angry or frustrated or hopeless or whatever about the times, to try and find a way to really see that we really are being called forward right now, and that anything that any one of us can do is not only going to help us, but it's going to help everybody around us.
Yes. When we heal ourselves, the world heals with us.
It sure does. Jump in, everybody.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.